Hi and welcome to another episode of Pennsylvania Voter Information Network. Today we have Larry Krasner. He is one of the Philadelphia's most outspoken and highly regarded progressive attorneys. For nearly 30 years, he has been fearlessly demanding fair treatment and justice for his clients of all backgrounds. Mr. Krasner went to Stanford Law School on student loans and scholarships. As he finished law school in '87, he received job offers from prosecutors and public defenders' offices from around the country. Krasner chose to work as a public defender. In '91, he was promoted to the federal public defender's office in Philadelphia. In '93, he started his own Center City law practice, specializing in criminal defense and civil rights. Since then, Krasner has tried thousands of jury and bench trials in criminal and civil court and represented countless defendants arrested for free speech activity and in most cases at no cost. Let's hear his forum right now.
Mr. Krasner.
I find myself agreeing with Mr. Kahn, which is always a good thing. The question is, to what extent will you share information concerning immigration status? Let's look at this from the perspective of someone who's actually been in this position. I've represented thousands of immigrants in my career. I've also been an advisor to the Mexican consulate at various times on criminal justice issues. Most of what we're talking about is public record. The feds are real good at looking at public record. In fact, they have ways to get at immigrants that the district attorney doesn't due to the fingerprint system that is in place currently. So I see no reason why the local prosecutor's office should act in an unfunded, unmandated way to facilitate the policies of a federal government that appears to be, how should I put it, hell-bent on driving as many immigrants out of this country as they can, including a lot of whom have done nothing wrong. Therefore, I would not share that information. It's readily available to federal authorities. It's not funded. This is a sanctuary city. And the fact is that local prosecutors who are truly progressive, and I am one of those, or I will be, need to stand up against a federal government that every day gives us new revelations about how repressive they can be and how they're a bunch of wannabe tyrants. So my bottom line is no, I'm not sharing the information.
Thank you, Mr. Krasner. Mr. Krasner.
Yes, thank you. So this is a topic near and dear to my heart because I am in court 4 to 5 days a week and have been for 30 years. And I have handled these cases myself, not just sat on boards, but handled these cases myself when someone's life was on the line time and time again. All right? So it is very near and dear, and I've seen it on a daily basis. What would I do? Well, first of all, I would hire from outside of the office to bring some balance. We need to have people come in, especially for specialized units, who have had experience on the other side of the fence. They have been defense attorneys. They have worked in other jurisdictions. I think that is true from the top down, and as the only candidate up here who has not been in the district attorney's office or in government, and frankly, therefore, not been part of the problem, I think it starts with the top. Second, I think you need to do a complete retraining on PCRA, which is the Post-Conviction Relief Act. What happens there is the mentality is defend these convictions at all costs as opposed to looking at the cases seriously to see whether the clients were underserved by their attorneys and deserve a new trial. Third, whenever we have a red flag, whether it's Officer Humes perjuring himself or something else, you need to take that red flag and look at how broad the problem really is. How many other cases did Humes have? How many times has Detective Dove done whatever it is he did? We also need not to operate on the basis of the notion that unless innocence is proven beyond all doubt, a case cannot be disturbed. Cases where integrity is lacking because the officers involved have been proven to lack integrity are cases where we need to systemically say we find them to be unacceptably strong and therefore we'll drop them. And finally...
Thank you, Mr. Krasner. I hope this stops. Mr. Krasner.
Well, I will say with all these excellent reform ideas coming from people who've actually been in a position to put them into effect for many years, I'm surprised it isn't fixed already. This sweeping wave of reform is inspiring, but doesn't seem to be substantiated by anyone's history for actually having tried to do it. However, with reference to the issues and speaking in the future, I will say this: we have to have convictions. The law permits something else. The district attorney should exercise his or her discretion not to proceed in those ways. Second, we need to have better notice for people. It's really not fair to lock them out of their houses, board up their windows, and then say, well, we sent a letter to the same house. That doesn't work very well. I would like to say that we should have court-appointed counsel. However, there is no Gideon versus Wainwright. There is no legal authority for paying court-appointed counsel in these property matters because they are not criminal matters. So unless there's a change in the law, I'm not sure that we can do that. As for whether we're talking about narrowing the scope, we absolutely should narrow the scope. There's no reason to assume that just because people who are for the most part poor have cash on them, that all of it is the product of illegal activity. Even if you have seen, for example, the sale of drugs, one small bag, something like that, I think that we should not be in the business of taking cash off poor people unless there's absolute proof of guilt and a conviction. And finally, I do agree that this money should go to a general fund. And when it goes to the general fund should turn around and reciprocate and should give some of that money back, because we don't want to have a system where prosecutors are basically bounty hunters, and the more they get, the more they keep.
Thank you, Mr. Krasner. Mr. Krasner.
Yes. So this question actually assumes things that are not correct. It assumes that no one's being prosecuted for marijuana in Philadelphia, and being in court every day, I know that that's not correct. There are people being prosecuted for marijuana when they are caught in the process of an arrest of a seller. So buyers who are caught at the same time as sales are being prosecuted in Philadelphia courts. People who are, for example, stopped with marijuana and they may present a false ID or something like that are being prosecuted in Philadelphia courts to the tune of about 600 a year. And therefore, it's not quite as simple as has been stated here. I do think the SAM program's been a success because we used to have 400 to 500 marijuana arrests per month in the city, and certainly it has been an improvement. In terms of the broader question of legalization of marijuana, the fact is that where recreational marijuana is available, for example, in Denver and in Colorado, there was a lower usage among teenagers of marijuana than when it was illegal. Maybe it's not fun anymore because it's legal, I don't know. But that's what the statistics actually show. So I think there's a pretty good argument that that's a good thing. It's also clear that where marijuana is readily available, there can be as much as a 25% reduction in opiate and opioid overdose deaths. So we are talking about potentially saving 125 lives in Philadelphia if we were to have either a de facto or an actually legally authorized policy of not prosecuting ready access to marijuana, and frankly, I support legalization of recreational marijuana, medical marijuana. As for other drugs, that is a more complicated issue, but the essence is, for users, it should be decriminalized, however, in a way so that treatment can be made to occur.
Oh, there you go. Thank you. Mr. Krasner.
Oh, how about a combination of Elizabeth Holtzman, famed Brooklyn progressive prosecutor, and Thurgood Marshall?
Mr. Negrin. Mr. Krasner.
This is a very, very deep issue. The core of it, I think, is often missed. If you talk to people who do victim services, one of the things they will tell you is they don't get participation because the victims and the survivors are really only given two choices, jail or acquittal. Those are the only two options, and that's not all they want. They want other things. They want to have closure. They want to feel that there is safety because the person is not just sat passively in a cell, but has actually received treatment. They want to have a face-to-face encounter. They want to have them accept responsibility. They want to have them do community service. There are all kinds of things that victims actually want. It's not what district attorneys represent, because district attorneys have their own political motivations, but what they really want is a whole variety of options, and they want to be the center of that discussion. And when they are the center of that discussion, they participate more, they come to court more, as opposed to being left in a situation where the choices are untenable. So I agree with much of what has been said by the other candidates, but that's where it needs to start.
Mr. Krasner.
Well, once again, it's refreshing to hear so many prosecutors who sought mandatory minimum sentences now opposed to them. It would appear that those of us who've been progressives our whole career have been somewhat persuasive. And I think that that's great. No, I don't like mandatory minimums. I don't like sentencing guidelines levels that are set by a bunch of upstate legislators who have a financial interest in putting Philadelphians in their jails because they can't make money at mining coal anymore. And I like judges. I think judges should be able to actually look at the specific circumstances of the defendant and of the case, and they should be able to make determinations without having their hands tied by a bunch of people who are frequently non-lawyers, often have no experience in the criminal justice system, and even more often have some sort of financial motivation to make sure more and more people are in jail or are being put in jail based upon high sentencing guidelines. No. The actual numbers on this are $20 million wasted in the first year if we bring back mandatory minimums, and $80 million wasted in subsequent years. just to put that in human terms, 20 million bucks is, tell me if I'm wrong, $540,000 public school teachers across the state. So you can have your $540,000 public school teachers, or you can have these stupid mandatory minimums. And no, I would not pursue them.
Mr. Krasner.
As a career civil rights attorney who's filed over 75 Section 1983 lawsuits against the police for corruption and for abuse, and who is right now chief counsel, along with my law partner, for a large group of attorneys representing an even much larger group of plaintiffs whose cases were overturned based upon convictions obtained by certain police officers who went down to 6th and Market and then were fortunate enough to be acquitted. You know, this is an issue that's pretty near and dear to me. We all know that the feds wouldn't take their testimony for 2 years before this district attorney's office stopped doing it. And the fact is, the 30 years I've been in court, I've seen over and over this DA's office completely abdicate its role to go after police corruption. And they do it mostly because they're in bed with the FOP. In bed with the FOP. The FOP, in the hands of John McNesby, has been an apologist and facilitator for activity that should be completely unacceptable. And you need a district attorney who's actually serious about going against this culture as opposed to being part of it or even endorsed by it.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. Mr. Krasner.
Yes, thank you. So, we're hearing a lot of words, we're hearing a lot of promises, we're hearing a lot of commitments, and frankly, these commitments are getting more and more progressive every time I come out to speak with my opponents here. There's been a fair amount of coverage about the reality that since I announced my platform in early February, there seems to be an increasing agreement on finding people who were perfectly content to work in an office that sought the death penalty vigorously who are now opposed to it. I mean, let's get real. It's not just what you say. It needs to be credible. And in order to be credible, it needs to be based on things you've done in your career. I have represented ACT UP, Black Lives Matter, Occupy, Heeding God's Call, which is a faith-based anti-gun violence group. I represented 420 people wrongfully arrested in the RNC, all acquitted. I did that, and I did it when it was unpaid. I did it when it was unpopular because I believed in reformers and I believed in reform. I have been a criminal defense attorney and a civil rights attorney all those years, not because it was going to make me a ton of money or make me beloved if I ever wanted to go into politics. Who would have thought, right? I did it because it was the right thing to do. So as you go back and you try to evaluate, who do you think really is the change maker? Who do you think really will go to the table and try to negotiate, but if the negotiation won't work, who do you think will flip the table? Look at what people have actually done, not just what they're willing to say, especially as what they're willing to say seems to be wandering closer and closer to this 100-yard dash to being the most progressive person in the world. Thank you very much.